fast-moving city, what do you see when you drive by roadsides? Skyscrapers? People? And cars? Is that all we have in this city? Have you ever imagined how would the city be like without traffic lights? There will be havoc! Havoc! But have you ever thought, how does a traffic light work with components connected to it? Now, we are going to demonstrate you a small scale traffic light. Trust me, it's small, alright?
Now we are going to demonstrate the circuit for the traffic lights. And now we will look at the overall components that are needed in the circuit. First is the diode. And the second one is the resistor. And we have 39 kilo ohm resistor, 6.8 kilo ohms resistor, and 470 ohm resistor. And next is the battery holders. And the fourth component are the IC holders. And the fifth components are potential meters. Next is the LED. And next is the transistor. And lastly, the capacitor.
Now I would like to proceed to the next component, which is the diode, which is a small tiny component. How we differentiate the terminals in these diodes? Can you all see the black color strips on the terminal? These represent the negative terminals, while the other end represent the positive terminals. Okay. Now, do you know what is the usage of these diodes? Well, it is used to combine two or more digital outputs from an IC, such as a counter. This can be a useful way of producing a simple logic functions without using logic gates. Furthermore, it can prevent a backflow of currents besides ensuring one direction flow of currents. In our case here, this diode is used for low current devices such as LEDs. Okay, now I would like to demonstrate to you how I'm going to connect these diodes into our circuit.
Firstly, we will have to set the temperature of the shoulder gun to 250 degrees Celsius. Because if the temperature is too high, it will damage the component. And if the temperature is too low, we can't do the soldering. Before we start soldering the component into the circuit, we will need to clean the tip of the soldering gun. And now I'll demonstrate on how to clean the tip.
resistor is a passive two-terminal electrical component which implements electrical resistance as a circuit element. The current through a resistor is directly proportional to voltage across the resistor's terminal. This relationship is represented by Ohm's law, V equals to IR. Now we can see the color stripes on the resistors. These color stripes represents resistor color coding. According to resistor color coding table, this resistor is 39 kilo ohm. Now the gold color here signifies the tolerance plus minus 5%. So the actual resistance is falls between 37,050 ohm and 40,950 ohm. Same concept apply to these two types of resistors.
Integrated circuits are also called as IC or chips. It's actually made by silicons and able to host hundreds to millions of resistors and transistors. So there are two types of integrated circuits is actually being used in our project. First is actually the 555 timer IC, which is able to provide the information about the time delay of oscillators. And next is actually a 4017 counter IC. And then it consists of 16 pins in this IC. And meanwhile, this 555 timers IC is actually consists of 8 pins. Both of them is actually giving the same properties. And next, the IC is actually easily being damaged by the heat during the soldering. Hence, it actually requires the IC holders, or known as dual inline sockets, to protect the IC from being damaged. So this is the holder, IC holders, and then we can actually put inside into mesh with the soldiers after we have complete.
So now, I would like to introduce an electrical components. This is a light emitting diode LED, which is a semiconductor light source. LED are used as indicator lamp in many devices and are increasingly used for other lightings. When the LED is forward biased or switched on, electrons are able to be combined with electrons from within the device, releasing energy in the form of photons. This effect is called electroluminescence, and the color of the lighting is determined by the energy gap of the semiconductor. LED are widely used in the applications of aviation lighting, automobile lighting, general lighting, traffic signals, and advertising. So, how are we going to determine the cathode and anodes of these LEDs? Okay, first of all, we can determine the cathode and anode by looking at the length of the legs of this LED. The longer legs representing the anode, and the shorter legs representing the cathode. So how if we accidentally break this leg? So we can determine by looking at the surface of this LED. The flat surface is representing the cathode, and the round surface is representing the anode. So now let me demonstrate how to connect these components onto our circuit.
Hi, a transistor is a semiconductor device used to amplify an electronic signals and electrical power. It is composed of a semiconductor material with at least 3 terminals for connection to an external circuit. A voltage or current applied to one pair of the transistor circuits changes the current flowing through another pair of terminals. Because the control output power can be higher than the controlling input power, a transistor can amplify the signal. Let me give you an example. A transistor can be used to amplify the small output current from a logic IC so that it can operate a lamp, relay, or other high current device. In many circuits, a resistor is used to convert the changing current
transistor is being used to amplify voltage.
This is a polar capacitor. We can determine the anode and cathode side by looking at the legs of this capacitor. The shorter leg is the cathode, whereas the longer leg is the anode. Besides that, we can also look at the stripe at the side of this capacitor, which shows the negative sign, which is the cathode side. In general, a capacitor is used to store voltage, but in this circuit, we have used it to calculate the frequency of IC555. So now I'm going to show you how to solder this capacitor onto the circuit.
There are a few precaution steps that you need to take note during the soldering process. Firstly, we must remember not to solder too long, because if we do so, the circuit component might be damaged by the high temperature. And the second, the leg of the circuit component must cut to prevent the short circuit. And lastly, for the IC, it is easily damaged when the temperature is too high during soldering. So we must use IC holder to protect the IC from damage. After that, we can insert the IC into the IC holder to protect the IC.
So we have accomplished our assignment, and this is our small-scale traffic light. Here comes the historical moment.
No one's ever gonna know for sure if we never try to make it clear. So I take time to explain. Sharks nibble and I'm out of here, still messing with the same old fear.